Hi everyone. This sample of similar to the Excel worksheet week 5 that we have. Different problem, but the concept is the same in both cases. We want to look at a relationship between fertility rates and birth rates in the world. And so I've collected up a sample. This is a hypothetical sample, but I have fertility rates in the sample and I have the corresponding birth rates that go with it. So the first thing I want to do is find out whether there's a relationship between these two at all. In other words, is there a correlation? So the first thing we want to do is find the correlation coefficient. And we do that by using our data analysis tools. And we click on data. And way over at the far end of this data analysis is the data analysis tool. And so we click on that. And we choose at the top of this, we choose correlation. And in the correlation, okay, I need to have my input range. Now I'm going to choose all of the words as well as the number, but notice where my dots are. They form here and they're all along here. So I'm selecting the entire input range, which is both pairs, fertility and birth rate. Since I did include the labels, I checked the box. Now my output range, if you click that button and I click here, my output range, I want to start here on E8. And so that's why I entered E8, or you can just click on E8. When I click OK, and you probably will get this message, his output range overwrite, you can say yes, and it will overwrite it. Now, these are the numbers that represent the correlation coefficients between the various different factors. In this case, obviously, fertility to fertility is a 1. That means that the correlation between fertility and fertility is absolute. If it were a -1, it would be an absolute negative, but a positive one, and the same is true with birth rate. But notice this number here. This number here is my correlation coefficient between fertility and birth rate. It's a very high number in comparison. Remember, a strong negative is going to be somewhere between -1 and -0.5. A weak negative is going to be somewhere between -0.5 and 0, 0 being no correlation at all. So the closer you get to 0, the less chance there is of a correlation or relationship between the two factors. And then moving toward the right, as I get, if I'm between 0 and a positive 0.5, I have a weak positive correlation. And if I go beyond 0.5, I have a pretty strong positive correlation. Well, 0.97 is a very strong positive correlation. So I'm going to move forward. I'm going to assume that I've done my research and come up with the fact that there is a relationship between these, and there is also a cause-effect. The fertility rates do affect birth rates. So if that's my case, and right now I'm going to move this out of the way because I don't need it just yet. And I'm going to find my least squares regression line, or what a lot of programs call their trend line, so that I can use it to predict birth rates based on fertility rates. And I'm going back to my data, and I'm going back to, on the data side, I'm going back to Data Analysis Tool Pack. Okay, and this time I'm going to choose regression. And in regression, and let me bring everything back into the screen here. Okay, the key here, very important, what you think is your dependent variable, in other words, the thing that's being predicted, is what goes in this first box. So in my case, it is birth rate. Okay, don't mix the two up. The X range is the independent variable. So this one is fertility rates. And again, I've selected the name, so I click on labels. The output range is going to show up down here starting on E15. And when I click OK, I'll be asked if I want to overwrite, and I will say yes. I'm not going to bother to overwrite it at this point because I don't need to. All the information that you have here, there's a lot of information. Most of it is used for hypothesis testing. But what we're interested in this particular case are these two numbers here, these coefficients, because they make up the coefficients for the least squares regression equation. The first number here is the intercept, the y-intercept. Remember, our equation of our line is y equals mx plus b, where the m is the slope of the line, or the rate of change, and that would be the birth rate over the fertility rate. And you get that ratio, and that's going to give me that slope, and then the y-intercept. So you'll see where these two numbers went. The 3.85 is in here. It is the y, up here, it's the y-intercept, it's the b. And the 6.5, I rounded it to 6.59, is my slope. That is my least squares regression line, or my point, my trend line, any name, various different names that are given to it. Now, if I want to do a prediction, if the fertility rate is 4.5, I replace the x with the 4.5. Working it through, multiply 6.59 times 4.5, then adding it to 3.58, and I end up with, ooh, something happened here. There it is, 33.505. So when the fertility rate is 4.5, I'm going to predict that the birth rate for a country will be 33.5. And that is how you're going to go about working the Excel worksheet number 5. I hope you find this helpful. Please post any questions that you have with regard to this example below this post. Thank you.